Here we go. All right, everyone, and welcome back to Untold. And I am your host, Doug Nicholson. And today we're going over the tragic history of Franklin Castle, Ohio's most haunted home. All right, let's get into it. Built by Haynes Tideman in 1881, Franklin Castle was supposed to be a dream home for an immigrant family, but quickly devolved into a house of horrors. With its elegant turrets and brick red window frames, Franklin Castle excludes turn of the century charm. But this Cleveland, Ohio mansion has a dark past, and today it's considered one of the most haunted houses in the United States. Built in the 1880s by a German immigrant, the house swiftly became the site of multiple tragedies. While some have attributed the house's deaths to bad luck, others claim that such something more sinister was at play. So, to date, people have described hearing crying babies, seeing a woman standing in the window, and feeling cold in certain parts of certain rooms. Even paranormal investigators have visited the house in hopes of spotting a ghost. So, what happened at Franklin Castle to make it so haunted? The story of Franklin Castle starts on a hopeful note. The mansion was constructed by Haynes Tideman, a German immigrant who seemed to have achieved the American dream. Tideman had made his fortune as a wholesaler in grocery and then as a co founder of Union Banking and Savings Company. Flush with cash, he decided to build a mansion on Cleveland's ritzy Franklin Boulevard. The banker wanted a house both big enough for his family and large enough to temporarily house other German immigrants. To that end, Tideman tapped into the offices of Caldwell and Richardson, who designed a striking 4-story, 20-room mansion. Tideman proudly doubled his new home, Franklin Castle. Sadly, it was long before tragedy struck. In January 1881, shortly after the family had moved in, Tideman's 15-year-old daughter, Emma, died of diabetes. Soon afterwards, his mother also died, and between 1886 and 1888, Tideman and his wife buried 3 more children while under the roof at Franklin Castle. Finally, after Tideman's wife died in 1895 of liver disease, Tideman remarried and sold his mansion to a German family named Malhauser. He himself died of a stroke some 13 years later while walking in the park. But that wasn't the end of the devastation at Franklin Castle. In fact, it was just the beginning. Franklin Castle began to develop its unconventional reputation in the 1920s. After it was sold by Mulhauser to the German Society, the castle became the site of illegal liquor production during Prohibition and the nest for Nazi spies during World War II. Reports of hauntings, however, didn't begin until the 1960s. By then, a family with 6 children called the Romans had moved into the house and were hoping to turn it into a restaurant. They instead found themselves battling with ghosts. The hauntings allegedly began right away. On the day the Romans moved in, 2 of the children said that they encountered a crying girl in white on the 3rd floor. But when Mrs. Roman investigated, no one was there. Soon the family started hearing haunting organ music and heavy footfalls. 2 of the older Roman children woke up one night to find something yanking on the blankets off their bed, and Mrs. Roman once awoke to find herself screaming on her bedroom floor with an unseen presence screaming beside her. A priest advised the Romans to move out, and in 1974 they did. Mrs. Roman said the house was getting the best of her. She suspected that she's been haunted by Louise Tideman and that the crying girl in white was Tideman's daughter Emma. But the hauntings didn't stop when the Romans left. The new owner, Sam, tried to capitalize on the house's reputation by inventing local media to check out Franklin Castle. Many of them had strange experiences while exploring its grounds. A Cleveland radio host named John Webster, for instance, described how something snatched his tape recorder and threw it down the stairs. He said, I just stood there holding the microphone and I watched the tape recorder go flying down to the bottom of the stairs where it broke into pieces, he recalled. From there, the house was sold again and again and again. Each new occupant reported strange occurrences like passing through odd vapors, hearing a child crying, or seeing a woman in black standing in the window. And as reports of hauntings at Franklin Castle increased, many turned their suspicion on its original owner. Tragedy had stalked Haynes Tideman while living in the house. He lost his mother, children, and wife. But what if he had a hand in their deaths? Suddenly, Emma and Louise's deaths looked more suspicious. Stories spread that Tideman had even murdered his niece by hanging her from the rafters and killed his mistress in a jealous rage. But how much of that is true? Today, Franklin Castle's legend has grown to such a proportion that it's considered one of the most haunted houses in the United States. But was Haynes Tideman a brutal, or a beater, or a murderer who slowly and steadily murdered his entire family? One man has said no. William Kripke, a Cleveland author and investigative historian who wrote a book on Franklin Castle called Haunted Franklin Castle. He believes that the stories about Haynes Tideman cruelly have been embellished over time. He says, they were very kind people. Mr. Tideman was a benefactor of a community, was a gorgeous man. He gave often to serious charities. He was not the monster that had been out in all of these stories about the castle. There's just no truth to that. None of the recorded deaths at Franklin Castle were foul play. All this makes for a fantastic ghost story, and who doesn't love a good ghost story, he said. There's just one problem. Hardly any of this is true. That said, he didn't entirely disagree with Franklin Castle and if it is haunted. When he visited the house himself, he had a number of strange experiences. Small stuff like footsteps, voices, and or the radio turning on. And my phone even turning on and off. Things like that. It's kind of cool actually, he said. Today, Franklin Castle is a private residence, and its current owners are mum on any recent hauntings, but the house does remain a popular stop on Cleveland ghost tours. Through its only viewable from the outside, haunting claims that the ghost of Louise Tideman can be standing in a window. In that way, Franklin Castle will keep its secrets, its soaring turrets, dedicated details, and striking windows might mask horrific crimes, or they may simply symbolize how one immigrant's American dream become a devastation nightmare. Alright guys, and thank you for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next one.